Today, I am honored to introduce a keynote speaker whose work and passion align perfectly with our mission of inclusivity and equity in education. It is an honor to introduce Mirko Chardin, Novak Education's Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer. Mirko is a trailblazer in the field of culturally connected teaching and learning. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Very impressive, very long list of things to tell you. Before joining Novak Education, Mirko was the founding head of school at Putnam Avenue Upper School in Cambridge, Massachusetts. His extensive experience in school management and student support has significantly impacted educational practices. Mirko is deeply passionate about recruiting and retaining educators of color, about restorative practices, and enhancing school culture. His commitment to these areas has transformed many educational environments and created more equitable learning spaces. Mirko is also, it's not done yet. Mirko is also a race, diversity, and cultural proficiency facilitator and leadership coach at Boston University's Aspire Institute. His work extends to providing virtual module content and in-person technical assistance for the Department of Education's Inclusive Practice Academy. As a principal mentor for the Perone Sizer Creative Leadership Institute and a former trustee of Wheaton College, Mirko continues to influence the next generation of educational leaders. Mirko co-authored the best-selling book, Equity by Design, The Power and Promise of UDL with Dr. Katie Novak, a crucial resource for educators nationwide. Highly encourage you to check it out. It goes without saying that Mirko's work in Universal Design for Learning is a testament to his dedication for creating inclusive educational practices. The values underpinning his work so strongly align with my personal values and Seesaw's goal of making learning accessible and meaningful for all students. Mirko's emphasis on culturally connected teaching and learning mirrors our commitment to learning experiences that honor each student's unique background and abilities. We recognize CAS's pivotal role in pioneering UDL and its ongoing effort to support educators in implementing inclusive and equitable teaching practices. Together, we are excited to drive meaningful change in education with all of you. We are honored to have Mirko share his insights and experiences today. His work is a beacon of hope and progress in education, and we are eager, I am eager for sure, to hear his thoughts on how we can further advance equity and inclusion through UDL. Please join me in welcoming Mirko to the stage.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Y'all gotta do better than that. The energy was up here, you just came down. We here celebrating kids today. Let's get that energy going. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let's try this. When I say UDL, y'all say come on. UDL? UDL? When I say UDL, y'all say poppin'. UDL? UDL? I like that. Now, once again, my name is Mirko Chardin. I am so thrilled to see you all. I spent 20 years in the field as a school leader, so I know what this time of year is about. Is we're getting ready to get excited and to pour into our kiddos and to ensure that they have the experience this year that they deserve, that's worthy of their humanity. I like friends, so y'all see my social media information up there. Please reach out, follow, let's connect. Educators need to network across this great nation of ours. And as we get started, I want to insert some joy in this space this morning, although it's already been tremendously joyous, because y'all have been buzzing. But to get us going, I want you to engage in a quick welcoming activity. And I'm asking you to do this because part of my personal practice, when I was a classroom teacher and even as a building leader, was always when human beings were present. That meant faculty meetings, that meant PLCs, even challenging conversations with parents and caregivers. We would begin with welcoming activities because we need to be mindful of the fact that the work's not just about the content, the work's not just about the curriculum, the work's not just about the resources, it's about the human-to-human connection. And that always needs to be central. So what I want you all to do is I want you to jump on your phones. I want you to jump on your devices. I want you to find some images that represent moments in your life over the past year or so that fill you with joy. And then you're just going to engage in a quick 2-minute conversation with an elbow partner on the left or right, where you share those things that bring you joy and you listen to the things that bring them joy. And now, by way of exampleship, I have a couple of images on the screen that always bring me joy when I think of them. First and foremost, top left-hand corner, you see an image of myself and my wife Haley on horseback in Jamaica at the beach. If I won one of those incredible, enormous Powerball and Mega Million jackpots, that's gonna be our life. Next to that, you see my 16-month-old pup, Sebi. I'm a dog lover. He looks all cute in that lawn chair, but since he's 16 months old, if there are dog lovers in the room, you know he's driving us crazy right now, but it's all good. We love him. Bottom left-hand corner, you see an image of myself at Chichén Itzá in Mexico, checking out the ancient ruins. I absolutely love opportunities like that. And bottom right-hand corner, you see an image of myself and some gentlemen that I've actually known since I was 14 years old. And I am proud to say that we have stuck with each other through the various ups and downs in life and have all positively contributed to the world of education. Those are the things on my mind this morning that bring me joy. Now it's your turn. And if you haven't seen me before, sorry not sorry, music's a huge part of what I do, so I'm gonna play 2 minutes of the song, Summertime Magic by Childish Gambino. While that song is playing, you need to engage in some conversations where you share what brings you joy and you hear from your colleagues. Go time is now, enjoy your conversations, and we'll be back to it in a moment. If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. If you can hear my voice, stomp your feet. Now, I know that was just a brief moment in time. 120 seconds is not enough time to have conversations with our colleagues and to share voices. And I'm giving you limited time intentionally. I am going to be intentionally having you start conversations that I am going to intentionally interrupt, because this space and time in this room should not be the only place in which you're reflecting in this way, having these types of conversations, and connecting with your colleagues. If we're committed to creating joyful experiences for the younger human beings who are dependent on us, then you need to have some heart you need to have some joy in your heart first. So if the adults don't have the joy, then the kids are gonna know that you're faking a funk, and they're gonna call you out. That's one of the reasons why we start by embracing our joy, because we're pouring into them and it starts with us. Now, I have some expectations for you all. They're on the screen right now. First and foremost is that you stay engaged. You all are doing a great job of that. I appreciate it. But what I need you to do while we stay in this space is hold this time sacred. Because if you do, we're going to have a powerful experience. And I know there is tons going on in the world that is bringing your brain in different directions. I want to know if there's anything new that's going on in Tay-Tay and Tavris' relationship. I live on this planet too. But I am tuning out and staying present here because I know there's some powerful work for us to do. Now, it's going to be powerful because I'm giving you each and every one of you explicit permission to speak your truths with no shame, blame, or judgment. That means you can push back, you can ask questions, you can disagree. We live in a particular historical time period in which people assume the word listen and agree mean the same thing, but the dictionary has something different to say. So I am telling you, you have permission to share what's actually in your heart and mind. Now, I also need to let you know that when we're in spaces, when we're sharing our truths, it is both plausible and possible that we might experience some discomfort, not because anybody's trying to wrong us, but when we give other individuals to actually share what's in their hearts and minds. Sometimes we learn of journeys, experiences, stories that challenge us, that push us outside of our comfort zone. It's not a bad thing. It means we're learning and making connections in new and robust ways. So we should appreciate and embrace that discomfort. And last but not least, I need you to always envision this work as a marathon, not a sprint. It's not simply about checking off boxes. It's not simply about crossing things off a list. It is 100% about being committed to creating learning journeys and experiences that are worthy of the humanity of our young learners and scholars. And with that said, I'm gonna get us going. And the first part of my message today is that access is significant, but access alone, it's not equity. And access alone is not enough to create circumstances that are worthy of the humanity of our young learners and scholars. And now, I also want to be clear that when I mention equity, I'm not talking about what might be on social media. I'm not talking about a political concept. I'm actually talking about the 4 bullets that you see on the screen right now. equitable access to inclusive classrooms with grade level peers, equitable opportunities to learn aligned to grade level standards. And those bottom two bullets is where it gets a little funky, because those bottom two bullets are not to be interpreted from your perspective. They're to be interpreted from the perspective of your customers and clients, of the individuals who are the direct recipient of the service that you provide. Why do I say that? Because listen, I know this is going to sound funny or cute, but I mean this so sincerely. School is for kids, not for adults. Each and every single one of you has completed your K-12 journey. I'll say that again. Some people were looking at me. Some of y'all are eye talkers. You're like, what? Each and every single one of you has already completed your K-12 journey. You, of your own free will and volition, have made a decision to come back into the world of education to facilitate somebody else's experience and learning journey. That means it's not about you, it's about them. So from their perspective, do they believe that there are equitable expectations that they can be successful when you and your colleagues provide them with appropriate supports? And again, from their perspective, do they believe that there are both equitable feelings of belonging and hope when they are with you? Now, we know that the goal of UDL, is learner agency. And when I think about this, for me, this is the work of equity. Because if it's truly about learner agency, it's about ensuring that our young people are in the driver's seat. It's about ensuring not just that we hear their voices, but that they know that they have significant things of value to share with us and the rest of this world. And if we are truly committed to the work of equity, then we know as we're developing and encouraging more agency within our learners, then it's about them being able to wield those powerful voices in purposeful and reflective ways that are resourceful and authentic, strategic, and goal-oriented. And now, if we're going to do this, we have to have the willingness to reflect in bold, broad, and scary ways. We have to ensure that we're not letting ourselves off the hook and that we're always mindful of the fact that it's not about us. It's about somebody else's baby. And they're expecting that they receive a positive experience that's worthy of them. And I'm going to share with you 3 big questions next that comprise what I call the Going Beyond Access framework. Because it's my belief if we normalize utilizing these questions, when I say normalize, that means when you sit to plan instruction, when you sit to plan activities, when you sit to review policies, you reflect through the lenses of these questions to ensure that we're being mindful of who this work is authentically for. First question is if we're valuing impact over intent. And what I mean by this is, are we actually taking into consideration what it looks like and feels like to be on the receiving end of decisions that you make? Or is it a circumstance where you simply pat yourself on the back? I think I put something together that is great. This is going to be good for me, but I'm not mindful of what it feels like to be a kid in this class or a kid in this school when they've realized that adults have made these decisions about them. Sorry, not sorry. We do need to be intentional in the practices that we choose to employ. But it's not about intent. It's about impact. It's about how that time you spend in the life of these kids shapes who they are. And if you're not mindful of that, sorry, not sorry, there's some work that needs to be done. Second question, can each and every single learner see themselves reflected in the work? This is not about politics. It's not about an act of kindness. It's about soothing the amygdala. Are we authentically communicating through action and deed and not just through what we say that we see, value, and believe in each and every single one of our kiddos? See, when we don't explicitly take into consideration making sure that we do this, we have a lot of kids who come to school and they're anxious. We have a lot of kids who come to school and they hear adults saying things like, I care about you, I believe in you. But as they scan our buildings, our classrooms, and they see what we have them engaged in, they think to themselves, they don't see me. I don't see my life. I don't see my world. Can I actually trust the people who are in this space? Reflection and ensuring that our kids' identities, reflections are reflected back to them. That matters. And again, it's above and beyond an act of kindness. Last question that's a part of this framework is the work authentically relevant to your learners? Does it actually have salience Is there actually importance that makes sense to them? Are we sharing with them explicitly that this is work that helps you make sense of this scary world and will help you to navigate it? Are we simply communicating that this is busy work that an old person thinks that you should be paying attention to, while you are actually trying to make sense of things that are more significant that these old folks just don't seem to care about or understand? It's something to think about, so I'm going to give you some time to think about. 2 minutes. What questions, reactions, wonderings do you have based on this crazy man up here yelling at you with all this passion? You're going to hear 2 minutes of an instrumental from the late rapper MF Doom. Enjoy your conversations. It's going to move quickly. If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, say, okay. Okay. If you can hear my voice, say, okay. Okay. If you can hear my voice, say, ready. Ready. All right, well, if y'all are ready, let's go. Now, y'all can see I have a lot of passion, about this work. And I have a lot of passion about this work because I authentically believe that this is the work that transforms hearts, minds, and lives. And certainly, there's tons of research, data, and theory I have that supports this. But in this moment that we're sharing together today, I think the most significant way for me to try to exemplify this is for us not to dig into tons of research and data right now, but for me to share with you a story about a human being that I know quite well, about their ups and downs with the educational system. Because it's my belief that if we focus on the vulnerability of a human being's experience, we will see that no matter what condition a learner comes to us in, we have the possibility and the plausibility of always ensuring that they have a great experience with us, and of always being able to positively impact the very trajectory of their lives. And now, the individual I'm going to share with you about is the only person that's ever given me explicit permission to share their dirty laundry in rooms full of strangers. Because I'm actually going to be sharing with you a little bit about myself. Now, I'm going to engage in what I consider an authentic moment of vulnerability and share with you some intimate details about my journey, not to put any emphasis on me, but again, to exemplify the fact that no matter what condition a learner comes to us in, if we are truly committed to seeing them as they are, valuing them, going above and beyond access, and getting our UDL groove on, we can ensure that they have a positive experience. And we can ensure that we positively impact, again, the very trajectory of their lives. And now, there's a quote that you see on the screen. It's a Sankofa proverb. And I always recite this before the telling of my tale because I believe that it grounds me in the strength, power, and courage to be vulnerable and to share my humanity with individuals that I may not have yet had the opportunity to meet personally. And it just simply states, know your story, own your story is your power. Now, my journey begins with the image of the individuals that we see on the screen. Those are my biological folks. And I do this a lot, and I always think the same thing when I see these pictures. My folks look cute, right? They look like they stylish, and they capturing a beautiful moment in their relationship. But what this image doesn't reveal is the fact that my biological dad was actually a prominent Roman Catholic priest in the city of Boston, my come-from place. And if any of you are not familiar with Roman Catholicism, priests take a vow of celibacy. They're not supposed to have any type of intimate physical contact with other human beings. They're certainly not supposed to have children. So it meant that there was a duality to our relationship. There were certainly times that I could access him and connect with him, but more often than not, I had to pretend that he didn't exist and say that I didn't have a dad. Now, growing up, I actually had some pride in this, though. I thought it was incredible that my father saw me as somebody who was responsible enough to be a guardian of such a significant secret, me. In this picture, it doesn't depict the fact that my mother has always wrestled with bipolar schizophrenia. And it's meant, for me anyways, as the only other human being growing up in the household, there were always responsibilities that I had. Make sure bills were paid,
make sure there was food in the fridge, make sure that we were actually making it to medical appointments and that she was actually taking her meds. Again, for me, things that I had pride in when I was a kid. I thought it was incredible that my mother and my family saw me as a resource to hold our household together. And I start here because although it's somewhat easy for me as an adult to reveal some of these intimate details, through my K-12 journey, I never met any teacher, principal, or counselor who I thought was trustworthy enough to actually hear about what was actually occupying my neocortex. And I share this because if we can't authentically create safe and welcoming spaces for our kiddos, they will not share with you what actually matters, what's actually going on in their lives. And despite your best of intentions, if that trust is not in place, the impact's not going to be what you want it to be. Now, that pride I had in myself growing up, for me, it was stripped from me when I was in the 4th grade. See, when I was in the 4th grade, I think I got this message that it was not okay to be myself. And that wasn't because of anything that my classmates did. My classmates, I always thought that it was cool. And my teachers, I'm not here to rag on them. I think that they were very good people who were extremely well-intended, but weren't always mindful of the impact of decisions that they made. Because as you see, some of my teachers, when they would find out about my ethnic background, and my apologies, I didn't, for anybody who's Haitian in the room, love to IAT. I am a Haitian American and proud. If you didn't know what that flag meant, I'm letting you know, representing right now. But see, some of my teachers, when they would hear about that ethnic background of mine, some of them would say things sometimes like, Marco, are you sure you're Haitian? Because you don't look Haitian. You don't dress Haitian. You don't smell or sound Haitian. Marco, come on, how could you be Haitian? And now, while I didn't know what they expected a Haitian to dress, look, smell, or sound like, I got a crystal clear message that it was not okay to be Haitian, at least not in public. So I actually began concealing that element of my identity, actually until adulthood, because I knew if I simply stated that I was African American, that I wouldn't have to deal with hearing these uncomfortable, weird questions. And I just didn't understand how these teachers, these adults who always said to kumbaya, you'll be the future one day, we love you, how could they not know how it hurt me inside to hear them say these disrespectful things in front of the entire class? And I remember, as I was going through this, one day having an epiphany, a little light bulb popping up over my head as I looked at the materials in the textbook and I looked at the images on the walls and I started to think to myself, oh man, are people like me supposed to be invisible in here? Because I don't see anything that reflects me or any of my classmates. And up until that point in time, I was always told that there was no such thing as a bad question. So when I would raise my hand to ask about this, I was often shocked by the disrespect that I was met with. Because I was typically told to shut up, put my hand down, put my head down, or I was going to the principal's office because I was being a behavioral problem. I was asking questions that should never be asked. And I just didn't understand why school, this place that I used to always be excited to go to, why was it now starting to feel so uncomfortable and so weird? And now look, I'm gonna date myself a little bit. If the grays in my beard didn't do that, because I kind of missed my Just for Men Day to be here, this would have been my Just for Men Day, so my hair is telling on me a little bit. But I grew up in the 90s. I'm a 90s baby. And the significant, 90s are in the house. The significance, at least to the telling of this tale, is as a 90s baby, I didn't have Alexa, Siri, Google. I didn't have the internet or social media. I didn't have any of these resources that kids in the world of today have at their fingertips when they are seeking out windows and mirrors to help them make sense of concepts that adults are not willing to dig in with them. The only resource I thought I had at my fingertips was network television. And when I turned on prime time, wrestling with these notions of representation, I was shocked. Because I saw tons of images of happy, thriving families, households, and communities, but they ain't look like mine. I saw tons of folks who wrestled with their cultural values and celebrated what it meant to be them, but they didn't look like me and they didn't look like my neighborhood. I saw families that always had two parents that were present, that had this incredible, loving, funny partnership that was like nothing I had ever seen before. And I started to think to myself, oh my goodness, are we supposed to be invisible in school? And is TV telling me that we're supposed to be invisible in a world outside of school too? Now, look, this is not me saying that there weren't images of black and brown men on TV in the 90s, because there were. But They typically manifested in the form of 1 to 3 different archetypes. Either that of the star athlete, like Michael Jordan, that of the comedian, a funny guy like Eddie Murphy or Martin Lawrence, or that of the thug, a tough guy like Tupac or Snoop. And while I knew I didn't have the athletic ability to think I'd be the next NBA superstar, and while I knew that it wasn't my gift to bring joy and laughter to the world through comedy, when I saw images of the thug or tough guy, they resonated. And they resonated because, at least in my community outside of school, thugs and tough guys were the only ones who seemed like they were authentically safe. What I mean by this is they could go where they wanted to go, say what they wanted to say, and nobody would bother them. So I started to think to myself, this is it. This is who I'm supposed to be when I walk outside the household. And it was fascinating for me because it seemed like there were some of my teachers that had mental telepathy or something. Because as I was going through this internal process, I started to hear for the first time with frequency, Mirko, be careful how you dress. Mirko, be careful who you hang out with. Mirko, be careful what you listen to. Because people like you don't make it in this world, Mirko. You might end up dead or in jail one day, Mirko. You might be a statistic one day, Mirko. You might be one of those kids who's not even worth my paycheck, Mirko. And I just couldn't take the disrespect anymore. I felt like I was only in school because I had to be. And in fact, by the time I was 13 and in the 8th grade, I made a decision in my heart of hearts that I was going to drop out as soon as I became a 16-year-old. Because I knew in those days, 16 was the legal age in which you could leave school. And I made a dueling commitment in my heart of hearts that I would blow up every single assembly or class I was ever a part of till I could leave that terrible place. Not because I wanted to be a bad kid, but because I wanted to make sure that every single kid in school with me knew that the teachers were liars, that the principals were frauds, that they were paid to say they care about us. But watch, in math class next period, I'm going to ask about representation, and I'm getting kicked out again. Don't you trust her? She's a liar. Or watch, last period when we had at assembly, I'm going to ask the vice principal, how come nobody who looks like us works here? And I'm going to get suspended again. Don't y'all trust them? They fake. It actually created a circumstance for me. Well, by the time I was 13 and in the 8th grade, I had already been expelled from 3 different Boston public schools. But I didn't care because I was just trying to get out of that terrible place and find my way in the world. Now, add insult to injury. Community outside of school wasn't always a safe one either. And I'm going to share with you a really brief anecdote that happened while I was 13 in the 8th grade that happened to take place after a game of basketball. That's why there's a hoop on the screen. And I think after this game, me and my friends were doing what teenage boys typically do. You know, we were trash talking each other about who had the smooth moves, who looked like they were on their way to the league, and who looked like they should never, ever pick up a basketball again. And it seemed like we were having such a great time until one of my friends by the name of Deron pointed to the top of the street and said, yo, there's a D-Tech Cruiser at the top of the street. We got to get out of here. It's not safe. Now, D-Tech Cruiser is just 90s Boston slang for an unmarked police detective cruiser. And when Deron said this, I was taken a little aback because my thoughts were, it's hot, there's no AC in the building, y'all stink. I'm not going in there, man. If we run away, it looks like we're up to no good. Let's just chill out here. But my friends, they laughed, they chuckled. Their thoughts were, Mirko, you trying to be a tough guy. We're going to go in the building. You're going to learn a lesson. But I was resolute. My thoughts were, I'm going to stay right here. Nothing's going to happen. So they laughed and they chuckled. And they walked up the stairs to that brick building. And as soon as that glass door shut behind them, that cruiser eerily sped up and stopped in the middle of the street, right before where I was standing. And before I knew it, I was pinned to the hood of a red Honda Civic that just happened to be parked there. And I remember being in shock. It just happened so quickly. I didn't understand why this was happening to me. I remember feeling the heat on the right side of my face as I was pressed down on that car hood. I remember feeling the pressure on my back and wanting to say, look, I'm innocent. I didn't do anything. Smell me. I was playing basketball. There's a ball right there. But I just couldn't find my voice. And then I remember my ankles being kicked open so that I was in a wide stance. My belt buckle become undone. And my pants and underwear come down because they decided to do an anal cavity search right there in the middle of the street. Now, I'm assuming that they quickly discovered that I was innocent or clean. I wasn't doing anything wrong because just as quickly as this circumstance unfolded itself, it was over. You know, my underwear and pants roughly came up. They jumped in that cruiser, shut the doors, and they were gone. No explanation as to why this had happened to me. No apology as to why this had happened to me. I was just kind of left to sit in that emotional energy, and that's what I did. I sat on that hard concrete, frustrated, feeling humiliated and embarrassed. I couldn't say anything to my friends because I was upset at them, because I knew that they had watched this thing and they didn't try to help. But then I was more upset at myself for thinking that way because I knew that there was nothing they could do to help. And if they had tried to help, it could have gotten even worse. So I just sat there on that hard concrete in silence, frustrated, till I could grab the strength to stand to my feet. Couldn't even say goodbye to anybody. I just walked down the street, jumped on the number 28 bus, and went home. See, for me, I was deeply starting to feel like there was a conspiracy in this world and society, where there was a narrative, a story that was created that certain adults were trying to pin on me. And the only way I could express what that felt like was to author the poem, You Ain't Nothing, that I will share with you now. You ain't nothing. Survival's a vicious game. Grab a tool, join a gang. Brown boy, you ain't nothing. In the hood you'll remain, consumed by the anger and pain, till your blood's pouring out and on the concrete you lay slain. Brown boy, you ain't nothing. Join a team, hold heat, make a life in these streets. It's a predator, super menace. Your worth is worthless, drop out. Life ain't for you, drop out. This world hated you before you were born, drop out. Brown boy, you ain't nothing. You weed-smoking shadow dweller, pariah of society. Be angry because we hate you. Fear us because we fear you. You're never gonna become anything because we don't want you to, and neither do you. Brown boy, you ain't nothing. Fast forward roughly about a year later in my life. It's when the image on the screen was taken. And by this particular point in time, I felt like I had no choice but to accept that narrative that was written for me. By adults in the community, by adults at school. And I don't know if you can identify me in this image because I know Marco looks very different as a grown man now. But I'm the individual in the top left-hand corner with that B hat kind of slung over my eye, trying to look tough or cool or whatever it was I was doing in this picture. And this was actually an image that was taken on a day in which me and my homies that were in that picture were skipping school and hanging out in an abandoned building in our neighborhood. One that had a fire in it, so there was plywood on all the windows, and we had to peel back the plywood to hide out on the inside on days in which we were ditching school. And I often say to folks that it was probably roughly about 30 or 35 days after this particular image was taken that I got a phone call that dynamically shifted the very trajectory of my life. And that phone call was that my friend Duran that I shared about in that previous anecdote about basketball, that he got shot and killed, murdered in front of his house over his white Nike Air Jordan sneakers. And now, when I got that call, I was crushed, devastated. Not because Duran was the first person I knew who was a victim of street violence, because he certainly wasn't. But he was the first member of my inner circle that was ever taken from me. Those people that you look forward to laughing and joking with and telling your deepest, darkest secrets and seeing with frequency. And he was just taken. And to add insult to injury, his dad was a prominent, well-known lieutenant detective on the Boston police force. So in my adolescent mind and amongst my circle of friends, the thinking always was if anybody was safe in the community, of course it was Duran because of what his dad did for a living. And if anyone had a guaranteed pathway towards success, of course it was Duran. So to get this call that Duran of all people got killed in front of his house over his shoes of all things, while his 6'5", 20-year veteran of the Boston police force lies asleep in his bed, it sent fear throughout my soul. I felt the only way I could ever leave the household again was if I armed myself. So I actually did that. I purchased a gun on the street, and I carried it with me wherever I went. Now, luckily for me, not too long after I acquired that firearm, I got arrested with it in downtown Boston. And I remember that day vividly. I remember sitting in the back of that cruiser with tears welling up in the corners of my eye, hearing in the center of my mind, with crystal clear clarity, the voices of each and every single adult who ever told me that I was going to be a statistic or a failure. Whoever told me that I was not worth their paycheck. Whoever told me that I wasn't going to make it in life and that I might end up dead or in jail one day. And I remember thinking in my heart of hearts, oh my gosh, I've finally gone and done it. I've become the person that these adults always told me I would be one day. I've finally gone and lived up to the expectations they had for me. And I remember with tears streaming down my cheeks, looking at the individuals in the front of that cruiser and saying to them, look, please, just give me another chance. I just need help. There's been so much going on. But unfortunately, hearing them chuckle back at me, ha ha, buddy, you blew it. And you're going away for a long, long time. Now, I'm actually going to interrupt the telling of my tale because as I said at the onset of this, not all about me. I was sharing a story about some of the things that some of us experience in life. Because each and every single one of us as human beings in this space has an identity, has a family, has a come from place, and has a journey that you have been on. And what I want you to do for the next 5 minutes or so is to forget about me and to focus on you. I want you to celebrate your identity. I want you to think about your come from place. I want you to think about your journeys and celebrate it. Why? Because this work is about celebrating humanity. And if you don't have the ability, with no shame, blame, or judgment, to celebrate who you are, then you don't have the empathetical ability to see that humanity in the lives of your kiddos. Some of us have had tremendously perfect, beautiful stories. Some of us have encountered some things. No shame, blame, or judgment about that. It is not about comparing and contrasting and saying, hey, I haven't gone through what that person's gone through. It's about celebrating the fact that you're a human being. You're not the family that you grew up in. You're not the community that you grew up in. You are a human being who's on a journey, and it is time to celebrate that if we are really committed to creating spaces worthy of the humanity of our kiddos. So I'm going to play another song. It's going to be Rolling in the Deep by Adele. While that song plays, speak your truth and celebrate you. You matter. Let's go for it, people. You hear my voice, clap once. You hear my voice, clap twice. You hear my voice, clap 3 times. Sorry, not sorry. I am invoking that last norm of accepting and expecting non-closure. I know 5 minutes is not enough time to take into consideration your humanity and your come from place. I know 5 minutes is not enough time to hear from your colleagues about who they are as human beings. Again, this is intentional because this should not be the only time and space in which you were thinking about this. If there's a conversation that you started and you have more to say to some people at your table, then you need to make sure that you exchange some information so you can keep those conversations going. If there's people that you were excited to hear from and there wasn't an opportunity to hear their voices, then you need to make sure that you connect with them. Listen, when we talk about the human-to-human connection, this is about us ensuring that there is joy within us, that we're celebrating who we are so that we can serve as examples and models for the young people as we invite them to do the same thing, folks. This is serious. This is where the work stops and ends. Because each and every single one of those kids who sees you, they see you for 180 days, for 6 to 8 hours a day, and they know the real you better than anybody else in your life. Why do I say this? Because there's nobody else in your life who receives the charge that your job is to watch and study these adults for 180 days a year, for 6 to 8 hours a day. They know what your facial expressions mean. They know what your eyes mean. They know what the tone of your voice means. They know what your body language means. If you don't like them, if you don't love them, if you don't believe in them, you never have to say it explicitly for them to pick up on it. They know you better than anybody else knows you. If you got beef with your colleagues, the kids know. If you're dating one of your colleagues, the kids know. Sounds like some people in here have some experiences with that. Look, I'm lifting this up to say to you, if you don't have the courage and the confidence to celebrate who you are with no shame, blame, or judgment, then those kids are going to size you up on day one and say, fake, 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 fake. Maybe you're cool, but fake, 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 fake. and if this is authentically about pouring into them, then we need to understand that our due diligence and homework doesn't just start when we crack a standard and try to think about how we're going to do something for a kid. It starts when we take into consideration the vulnerability, the anxiety, the scariness, the messiness of showing up in a space and hopefully believing that others will accept you and acknowledge you so you can comfortably learn something new and be at your best. It is just something that we have to think about and take into consideration if this work is authentically about the human beings that we serve, that we've committed to pouring into, and not about us just patting ourselves on the back. Now, those big reflective questions that I shared with you at the beginning, sometimes when I share those questions, people will ask me, Mirko, how do we use them? How does this work? That sounds cool. What do we do with them? Well, two things. First and foremost, those questions aren't really for you as an adult. Those questions are for your learners. I know that that's a scary thing, but in my former school community in Cambridge, each and every kid got permission at any particular time from me as the principal to, if they felt like adults were not taking them into consideration, to say, Mr. Chardon said it's okay for me to ask, are you actually valuing the impact on me right now? Mr. Chardon said it's okay for me to ask, do you think I see myself reflected in this? And Mr. Chardon said it was okay for me to ask, do you actually think that this is relevant to my life? It's just something to think about. It's for them, not you. It's not about patting yourself on the back. It's about making sure they have a positive experience. Now, as we think about some of the technical aspects of our work as folks who provide instruction, the slide on the screen right now is how you use those questions. You know, as UDLers, it starts with the goal. We start backwards. We think about what it looks like when our kids get to success. We think about what those assessments or prove-its, what are going to be the mechanisms that we utilize to allow kids to show us that they have actually mastered that standard. We know that we have to take into consideration the methods of instruction that we will utilize, being sure to be mindful of the fact that it's not about how we want to receive this information. It's about how it's transmuted from our brains into the hearts and minds of the kids in our class. We have to take into consideration what materials are necessary. Now, for us to do this, because school's for who? Some of y'all got it. School's for kids. It ain't for you. It don't matter how you would do it, unless you go back in time and you take your class. But if you're the one who's standing at the front, it's about them. So after we figure out all this stuff and we think we've created this really amazing universally designed lesson, we got to start reflecting. We go right back to those going beyond access questions and we ask ourselves, how are the kids going to feel when they see all these decisions I made about them? What is the impact going to be on them? And if it's possible that that impact is not going to be what I want it to be, I'm not done planning. I got some work to do. I made all these decisions about my kids. From their perspective, how are they seeing themselves reflected in this? I know I might think they're reflected in this, but when I think about them, can they actually see that? Because it's not just about my effort. It's not just about my attempt. It's about what actually happens when they set foot in that classroom. And last question, from their perspective, when they take into consideration the stuff that I put together, why are they going to think that this matters? And if the answer is because an old person told them it does, it's the wrong answer. And look, I know I talked about having gray, so I can't say that I'm the young man anymore. But for any of you newbies who are like, well, I'm the young person, I'm still young here, you're old to the kids. Somebody needs to hear that again. Once you take this job and you step in front of the kids, you are old to them. And you have to keep in mind that what mattered during your time as a learner, during your generation, what was cool for you, it's not going to matter to them. Because it's not about you, it's about them. So we reflect in this way before we plan instruction and after we do, to ensure that we're going above and beyond access and are mindful of who are the recipients of the work that we're providing. When we're mindful of who it's for, we can actually meet their needs. When we're not mindful of who it's for, we can pat ourselves on the back and say we worked hard. But our data and the impact and the behaviors and the relationships are going to communicate They're going to tell on us, and they're going to say that we didn't work as hard as we should have. Next thing for you, I said a lot. I want you to continue reflecting. It's a big question. How do we design systems that remove barriers for all while providing each learner with agency? No shame, blame, or judgment. It's a big question. I think it's a heavy one. So there's going to be a heavy song that goes along with this. It's going to be Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday. Enjoy your conversations. If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. Now, I'm being authentic with you all. I typically don't do this, but I feel compelled to right now. And the thing I'm referring to is share what happens next in my anecdote, my journey. Usually I save that for when I see you for the next time. But I'm going to share right now. And long and short of it was, what transformed my life was going to a public school, not a special program, a public school. Somebody say public school. A public school where the educators subscribed to a way of seeing kids and believing in themselves that was different than anything else I encountered. That's where I first encountered the ideas of no shame, blame, or judgment, of universal design. Not as an educator, as a kid who realized, wait a second, I know that this is supposed to be school, but this is not like any other school I went to, because it seems like the educators actually care. It seems like they're actually curious about who we are. I'm actually seeing black and brown people in the curriculum. They're actually, when we ask tough questions, they understand that kids ask tough questions just to stump the adults. And when they can feel it coming, they say one of the most rewarding and disarming thing that a boss, supervisor, or teacher can ever say to somebody. And that is, I don't know. Let's learn this together. See, they were authentic in a way that blew my mind. And it communicated to me that school wasn't something that had to be done to you. It was something that can be done for you and with you. And it completely and dynamically transformed what I thought I could accomplish and what I thought my place in the world would be. And it's why I have gone on to do the things that I have done and to stand before you today. And I share that with you because each and every single one of you has the power to do that. And again, it's not simply about what you say, it's about what you do. Because kids are watching and they're learning from what they experience when they are with you. It's not good enough to say you care. It's not good enough to just have images up on your wall that say, Kumbaya, we are the world, I love you. They are looking to see what it feels like, how you treat them, how you interact with them. What type of kindness can you extend when they're frustrating you on purpose? Just to see, are you going to be another one of those lame adults that said you cared until here? Or do you actually really care for me? And you care for me enough that even when I'm being in a pain in the butt, you're going to still love up on me like I was one of yours. That's what your kids are looking for every day. Now, last thing I have for you, actually I'm lying, I got a couple of minutes, so I got the microphone, I got y'all stitch. If you like what you've heard today, Novak Education, we're doing a leadership institute that I am leading. Check us out. If you like what you've heard today, check out that text, Equity by Design. If you like what you've heard today, when I jump off of this stage, come find me, get a business card, let's connect. I do this. I am no longer connected to a school community. So I can be on the road and try to help others ensure that they can create circumstances that provide joy for the educators and ultimately joy for the kiddos. Merkle got your back. You all are already good enough. I don't care if yesterday, last year, this year was a terrible one or not. If you ground yourself in understanding that it's about the kids, you ground yourself in understanding that you are a person who has value and you are worthy, then you have what it takes to ensure that kids can not only have a positive experience, but their life trajectory, no matter what condition they came to you in, can be positively impacted. My final words for you were just a poem that I've written, inspired by the words of one of my favorite authors, Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I will leave you with this before we move into the day. Oh, I'm moving around so much I'm breaking stuff. I'll try to be still. But the poem says, good enough. The inequity of a privileged die. It judges those such as I. no matter how reformed or how hard we try. Yet our humanity, it's not defined by their inability to see our fragility. So the only choice is to authentically be ourselves. Leaving's not an option, folks. And if it's gonna get better, it's only gonna be through our resilience. Let me say that one more time. If it's gonna get better, it will only be as a result of our resilience. It's made manifested through our willingness to stay and persevere. Persevering doesn't mean that you've come in contact with the challenge. It means that you've overcome it. That's why it's important that we stay and persevere. Every night has an end. Every storm has an end. And for some, it might feel like the night has come. But guess what, my friends? The sun will return and reappear, because it always does. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Keep believing in kids and keep believing in you.